6 months had passed since Elder Vrenkar delivered the news that changed everything. Station Horizon 7 was different now. The cargo bay where Lucy had first seen Kethvorak standing alone was no longer a place where aliens ran away at the sight of a Dravani. It was a place where beings of all species mingled and traded, and talked without the old fears holding them back. Lucy stood at her inspection console and watched the activity with a feeling of quiet satisfaction. A Dravani merchant was bargaining with a Velish trader over the price of mineral samples. 2 young Dravani warriors were playing cards with a group of human engineers in the corner. An alien child tugged at Kethvorak's leg and asked him to pick her up so she could see the stars through the upper viewing ports. Kethvorak lifted the child gently with one of his 4 arms and held her against his shoulder while she pressed her face to the glass and made sounds of wonder. The child's parent watched from nearby with an expression that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Trust. Lucy finished her work and walked over to where Kethvorak was standing. The child's parent came and collected their little one with a word of thanks to the giant Dravani warrior. Kethvorak nodded politely and watched them go with something soft in his yellow eyes. "You are getting good at that," Lucy said. "At what?" Kethvorak asked. "At being gentle," Lucy said. "At letting people see who you really are." Kethvorak made his rumbling laugh sound. "I had a good teacher," he said. They walked together to the noodle shop on level 3. The cook greeted them by name and started preparing their usual orders without being asked. Other customers nodded to them as they passed. Lucy and the Dravani ambassador had become a familiar sight on the station. Their story had spread across the galaxy, and people came from distant systems just to see them together. They sat at their usual table and ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kethvorak spoke. "I received a message from Threckmore today," he said. That Lucy looked up with interest. "How is he doing? Better than I expected," Kethvorak said. "He has been speaking to the young warriors on our homeworld, telling them about the old ways, about the bond of kin-choosing. Some of them are listening." "That is wonderful," Lucy said. She meant it. The idea that their friendship could change an entire warrior culture had seemed impossible at first, but every week brought new evidence that it was actually happening. "He asked me something," Kethvorak continued. "He asked if I would be willing to return home someday, not as an exile, but as a teacher, to help our people remember what we forgot." Lucy felt a sudden tightness in her chest. "And what did you tell him?" she asked. "I told him that I would think about it," Kethvorak said. He reached across the table and took Lucy's hand in his massive palm. "But I also told him that wherever I go, my Bond King goes with me. We are connected now. Nothing can change that." Lucy smiled, even as she felt tears threatening again. "You know, I only live for maybe another 60 years, she said. "That is nothing compared to a Dravani lifespan. Are you sure you want to tie yourself to someone who will be gone so soon?" Kethvorak squeezed her hand gently. "I would rather have 60 years with you than 600 years alone," he said. "You taught me that time is not measured in years. It is measured in moments, in connections, in the ways we touch each other's lives." "When did you get so wise?" Lucy asked. "I learned from a very strange human," Kethvorak said. "She had a habit of befriending scary aliens and refusing to run away, no matter how many times they warned her. She sounds foolish." Lucy said. "She is the bravest person I have ever known," Kethvorak said simply. They finished their meal and walked out onto the main promenade. The station was busy with the usual traffic of beings going about their lives. But something caught Lucy's attention. A young Dravani was standing near the docking bay entrance. He was smaller than Kethvorak, and his scales were a lighter shade of blue. He looked nervous and out of place. Kethvorak noticed him too. "Stay here," he said to Lucy. "Let me find out what he wants." Lucy watched as Kethvorak approached the young Dravani. They spoke for several minutes in a language she did not understand. She saw the young one's expression shift from nervous to hopeful to something that looked like relief. Then both of them walked back to where Lucy was waiting. "Lucy," HFY said, "this is Shenvar. He has traveled very far to find me." The young Dravani looked at Lucy with wide eyes. "You are her," he said. His voice was full of awe. "You are the human from the stories. The one who taught HFY about friendship." "I do not know about stories," Lucy said. "I just did what felt right." Shenvar shook his head. "The stories do not do justice to what you accomplished," he said. "You changed everything. On my homeworld, the young ones speak your name with reverence. They say that you are proof that strength has many forms." Lucy felt her face grow warm. She was not used to being treated like a hero. "I was just being a friend," she said. "That is exactly what makes you a hero," Shenvar said. No one else had the courage to try. Everyone else saw HFY as a monster to be feared. You saw him as a person who deserved kindness. That one choice started a revolution. HFY put his hand on the young Dravani's shoulder. "Shenvar has come to learn," he explained. "He wants to understand the old ways. He wants to take that knowledge back to our people." Lucy looked at the eager young face before her and felt something warm bloom in her chest. "Then let us teach him," she said. "We can start with lunch. That is where all the best friendships begin." They went back to the noodle shop together. The cook brought out an extra bowl without being asked, and Shenvar tasted human food for the first time with an expression of surprise and delight. Lucy taught him the same card game she had taught HFY months ago. By the time the restaurant closed, Shenvar was laughing openly and promising to return the next day. After he left, HFY walked Lucy back to her quarters as he always did. They stopped at her door and stood together in the quiet corridor. Today was a good day, Lucy said. Yes, HFY agreed. But they are all good days now. Because of you. Because of us, Lucy corrected. I did not do this alone. You made a choice too. You chose to let someone in. You chose to be vulnerable. That took more courage than any battle you ever fought. HFY looked down at her with those warm yellow eyes. Perhaps you are right, he said. Perhaps courage is not about being unafraid. Perhaps it is about reaching out anyway. Lucy smiled. Now you understand. She reached up and HFY bent down so she could hug him properly. His forearms wrapped around her gently, and they stood together for a long moment in the quiet of the station night. Same time tomorrow, Lucy said when they finally stepped apart. Same time tomorrow, HFY replied. He walked away down the corridor, and Lucy watched him go. He was no longer the lonely warrior she had found sitting on that bench 6 months ago. He was something new, something better. And so was she. In the years that followed, the story of Lucy Warren and HFY spread across the galaxy. It became legend. The tale of the human woman who saw past fear and the Dravani warrior who remembered how to hope. It inspired countless beings to reach out across the barriers of species and culture, to take the risk of connection, to be brave enough to offer friendship to those the universe had taught them to fear. And it all started because one human had the courage to ask a lonely alien if he wanted to get something to eat. That is how change happens. Not through wars or treaties or grand political movements, but through small acts of kindness, through the simple decision to see another being as worthy of compassion, through the courage to reach out and say hello. Lucy Warren never thought of herself as special. She was just a cargo inspector who did not like seeing people treated badly. But sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes one person choosing kindness over fear is enough to change the entire galaxy. And in the end, that is the most human thing of all. 2 weeks passed after the confrontation in the plaza, and the station slowly returned to normal. Lucy went back to her job as a cargo inspector. Kethvorik continued his cultural exchange duties, though no one on the station avoided him quite as much as before. Something had changed in how the other species looked at him. There was still fear, but now there was also curiosity and something that might have been respect. Lucy noticed the change in small ways. A vendor who had refused to serve Kethvorik before now nodded to him when they passed. A group of young aliens who used to run away at the sight of him now watched from a distance with interest rather than terror. The story of what happened in the plaza had spread through the station and beyond. Everyone knew about the human woman who stood beside a Dravani warrior and the warrior, who chose friendship over his own people. They were eating lunch at their usual table when Kethvorik spoke about what was coming. "The clan elders will make their decision soon," he said. His voice was calm, but Lucy could see the tension in his posture. "I expect they will send the formal declaration of exile. I will be cast out from my people forever. My name will be erased from the clan records. It will be as if I never existed." Lucy put down her food and looked at him. "Is there any chance they will accept what happened and let you come back?" Kethvorik shook his head slowly. "No. I spoke the ancient rites, and I meant them. I chose you as bondkin in front of witnesses. That cannot be undone. Even if I wanted to take it back, they would never trust me again." "Do you regret it?" Lucy asked quietly. Kethvorik was silent for a moment. Then he reached across the table with one of his massive hands and gently touched Lucy's shoulder. "I have never felt less alone in my entire life," he said. "I have never felt more certain that I made the right choice. So no, I do not regret it. Not even a little." Lucy smiled and was about to respond when the station alarms started blaring again. The same alarms that had announced the arrival of the Dravani warships 2 weeks ago. Lucy felt her stomach drop. They both ran to the nearest viewing screen, and what Lucy saw made her heart sink. A single Dravani ship had appeared near the station, but it was not a warship. It was smaller and sleeker. A courier vessel designed for speed. "That is a judgment ship," Kethvorik said. His voice was flat. "The elders have made their decision. They send such ships to deliver formal exile declarations." "What happens now?" Lucy asked. Kethvorik straightened his spine. "I will meet them at the docking bay. I will accept their judgment with honor. And then I will begin my new life as an outcast." "I am coming with you," Lucy said. Kethvorik looked at her, and something softened in his yellow eyes. "I expected nothing less," he said. They walked together to the docking bay. Station security was already there, keeping the curious onlookers back. Lucy noticed that the security chief gave Kethvorik a small nod as they passed. Even the station authorities had heard the stories. The courier ship landed and its door opened with a hiss of escaping air. A single Dravani emerged. He was old by any species standards, with gray scales that had faded to almost white and a body that had grown thin with age. He walked with the aid of a staff, but his yellow eyes were sharp and clear. Kethvorik stiffened beside Lucy. "Elder Vrenkar," he said. His voice held a note of surprise. "I did not expect the clan to send one of the High Council." The old Dravani stopped a few feet away and studied Kethvorik with an unreadable expression. Then his gaze shifted to Lucy, and she felt like she was being examined down to her soul dot. "So this is the human," Vrenkar said. His voice was surprisingly gentle for a Dravani. "This is the creature who inspired one of our warriors to invoke the ancient rites. My name is Lucy Warren," Lucy said. She kept her voice steady. "I am honored to meet you, Elder Vrenkar." The old Dravani made a sound that might have been amusement. "She has courage," he said to Kethvorik. "I can see why you chose her." Kethvorik spoke formally. "I am ready to receive the judgment of the clan elders. Whatever they have decided, I will accept." Renkar reached into his robes and pulled out a sealed document marked with official clan symbols. He handed it to Kethvorak. "Read it," he said. Kethvorak broke the seal and unfolded the document. Lucy watched his face as he read, and she saw his expression shift from resigned acceptance to confusion to something that looked almost like shock. "This cannot be right," Kethvorak said. He looked at Renkar with disbelief. "This says that I am not exiled. This says that the Council has chosen me as the first Dravani cultural ambassador to humanity." Renkar nodded slowly. "That is correct. But Commander Threckmord said the elders would never accept what I did," Kethvorak said. "He said they would demand my death." "Threckmord reported everything that happened here," Renkar said. "He described how you invoked the ancient rites, how you stood against 3 armed warriors to protect a being who could offer you nothing in return, how the human woman stood beside you without flinching even though she knew she could not survive a fight." The old Dravani paused, and his eyes grew distant. "I am very old," he continued. "I remember a time before our people became what we are now. I remember the stories of Bonkin and the strength that comes from choosing to protect rather than destroy. Those ways were lost because we decided that only violence mattered. We forgot that there are other kinds of strength." Lucy spoke up. "What changed? Why did the Council decide to honor Kethvorak instead of punishing him?" Renkar looked at her directly. "You did," he said. "When Threckmord returned home, he told the Council what he had witnessed. He described a small, weak human who was willing to die for a Dravani she had known for only weeks. He asked us a question that none of us could answer. He asked us what it meant that a prey species understood loyalty better than we did. The Council debated for days." Renkar continued. "Some wanted to exile Kethvorak and forget that any of this had happened. Others wanted to study humans to understand how they could be used against us. But a few of us remembered the old ways. A few of us wondered if perhaps we had lost something important when we became warriors, and you won the debate," Kethvorak said. His voice was thick with emotion. Renkar smiled, and it transformed his ancient face. "We won because your story spread through our homeworld before we could stop it. The young ones heard about the warrior who chose friendship over his clan. They heard about the human who stood against impossible odds for someone she cared about. And they started asking questions. Dangerous questions about whether there might be more to life than fighting and dying. Lucy felt tears forming in her eyes again. She seemed to be crying a lot lately. "So what happens now?" she asked. Renkar turned to face her fully. "Now we learn," he said. "Now we send Kethvorak back to you as our ambassador. Not to study humanity as enemies, but to understand you as potential friends. It will take generations to undo the damage we have done to ourselves. But this is the first step." Kethvorak stood very still, and Lucy could see him struggling to process everything he had heard. Then he did something that clearly surprised the old elder. He knelt down and bowed his head. "Thank you," he said. His voice broke slightly on the words. "You have given me back something I thought I had lost forever. You have given me hope." Vren-Kar reached out and touched Kethvorak's shoulder gently. "Do not thank me," he said. "Thank your Bonkin. She's the one who showed us what we had forgotten." Lucy stepped forward and took Kethvorak's hand. She helped him rise to his feet, and they stood together facing the elder. "I did not do anything special," she said. "I just saw someone who was lonely, and I decided to be his friend. Anyone could have done the same, and yet no one else did," Renkar said. "That is what makes it special." He turned and walked back toward his ship. At the door he paused and looked back over his shoulder. "One more thing," he said. "Commander Threckmord asked me to deliver a message to you both. He said to tell you that he is beginning to understand what the old ways meant. He said he hopes to meet you again someday. Not as an enemy, but as someone who was trying to remember Dodd. Then he stepped into his ship, and the door closed behind him. The courier vessel lifted off and disappeared into the stars. Lucy and HFY stood in the docking bay holding hands and watching the empty space where the ship had been. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, HFY broke the silence. "I do not know what to say," he admitted. "This is not how I expected today to end." Lucy squeezed his hand. "Sometimes the universe surprises us," she said. "Sometimes things turn out better than we dared to hope." HFY looked down at her, and his yellow eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I am staying," he said. "I am an ambassador now. We can keep having lunch together." Lucy laughed, and it was a sound of pure joy. "Same time tomorrow," she said. "Same time tomorrow." HFY agreed. They walked out of the docking bay together, and the station seemed a little brighter than it had before. Lucy Warren had worked on Station Horizon 7 for 2 years, and she thought she had seen every kind of alien the galaxy had to offer. She was wrong. The day the Dravani warrior walked through the main cargo bay was the day she understood why other species whispered about them with fear in their voices. He stood over 9 feet tall, with gray-blue scaled skin that looked like armor. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle, and his face carried deep scars that formed patterns across his cheeks and forehead. His eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils, and they moved across the crowd with cold attention. Everyone in the cargo bay stopped what they were doing. Then they moved away. Merchants closed their stalls. Workers found reasons to be somewhere else. Within 30 seconds, the entire section was nearly empty. Lucy stayed where she was at her inspection console. She watched the giant alien look around at the space that had cleared around him. Something in his posture changed. His 4 shoulders dropped slightly, and his jaw tightened. She recognized that look. She had seen it on the faces of new human arrivals who came to the station and found themselves alone among species who did not trust them. The Dravani was Lonely Dot, her coworker. Pete grabbed her arm from behind. He was a thin man with nervous hands, and he pulled her toward the exit. "Lucy, what are you doing?" he whispered. "That is a Dravani. They kill people for looking at them wrong. We need to leave right now." Lucy pulled her arm free. "He does not look like he wants to kill anyone. He looks like he wants to buy some food." She was right. The Dravani had walked to one of the few food stalls that remained open. The merchant behind the counter was a small creature covered in blue fur, and it was shaking so hard that the items on its shelves rattled. The Dravani spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. He was asking about something to eat. His galactic common was rough, but understandable. The merchant shook its head frantically. No, we are closed." "Very closed. Please go away." The Dravani looked at the steaming pots of food behind the counter. He looked back at the merchant. "You are not closed. I can pay." "Closed," the merchant repeated. It pressed a button and metal shutters came down over the stall with a loud clang. The Dravani stood there for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward an empty bench near the viewing windows. He sat down heavily, and his massive frame made the bench creak in protest. He stared out at the stars with an expression that Lucy could only describe as tired. Pete was still tugging at her sleeve. "Lucy, please." "My sister was on a mining colony that the Dravani raided. They are monsters." Lucy looked at her coworker. Then she looked at the giant alien sitting alone on the bench. "Maybe some of them are," she said. "But that one just wanted dinner, and everyone treated him like he was carrying a plague." She walked across the cargo bay before Pete could stop her. Her footsteps echoed in the empty space, and the Dravani turned his head to watch her approach. His yellow eyes narrowed, and one of his 4 hands moved to the weapon at his belt. Lucy stopped a few feet away from him. She kept her hands visible at her sides. "Hi," she said. I am Lucy. I work here as a cargo inspector. I saw what happened at the food stall. That was not fair. The Dravani stared at her. He did not speak. Lucy pressed on. There is another food area on level 3. The vendors there are a little more open-minded. I could show you where it is if you want. Why, the Dravani asked. His voice was so deep that Lucy felt it vibrate in her chest. Because you are hungry and everyone else is being rude, Lucy said simply. The Dravani tilted his head. He studied her the way someone might study a puzzle that made no sense. I am Dravani, he said slowly. You are human. Your species is small and weak. You have been part of the Galactic Union for only a short time. You have nothing to gain by helping me and much to lose. Lucy shrugged. Maybe I do not like seeing someone get treated badly just because of what species they are. Humans have a long history of doing that to each other. We are trying to be better. The Dravani was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again. My name is Kethvorak. I am here for a cultural exchange program. My clan leaders sent me as punishment for questioning their decisions. They hoped I would fail and bring shame upon myself. That sounds rough, Lucy said. She sat down on the bench next to him without asking permission. The Dravani tensed but did not move away. So you are stuck here alone with no one willing to talk to you or sell you food. Yes, Kethvorak said. That is accurate. Well, Lucy said, not anymore. Come on. I will take you to level 3 and we will find you something to eat. Do you have any food allergies I should know about? Kethvorak made a sound that might have been a laugh. It came out as a low rumble. Human, he said. Do you have any idea what befriending a Dravani means? In my culture, such bonds carry weight. They carry obligations. They carry danger. Lucy stood up and looked at him directly. I am not afraid of danger. And I'm not afraid of you. So are you coming or not? Kethvorak rose from the bench. Standing at his full height, he towered over Lucy like a mountain over a small hill. Most beings would have stepped back. Lucy did not move. You are either very brave or very foolish, Kethvorak said. Probably both, Lucy admitted. Now come on. The noodle place on level 3 is really good. She started walking toward the lift, and after a moment, she heard heavy footsteps behind her. When she glanced back, Kethvorak was following at a careful distance. His expression was unreadable, but he had taken his hand off his weapon. They rode the lift in silence. When the doors opened on level 3, several aliens saw them and quickly moved out of the way. Lucy ignored them and led Kethvorak to a small noodle shop run by a cheerful 4-armed cook who was too busy to be afraid of anything. 2 bowls of the spicy red, Lucy said. Extra large on one of them. The cook looked up at Kethvorak and shrugged. Coming right up. Find a seat anywhere. They sat at a table near the back. Kethvorak looked around at the small restaurant with something like wonder on his scarred face. No one ran, he said quietly. Give it time, Lucy said. People get used to things. They get used to people too. The food arrived, and Kethvorak ate carefully with 2 of his 4 hands. He made a sound of approval at the taste. This is good, he said. Told you. Lucy said. When they finished, Kethvorak looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. I do not understand you, he said. But I thank you for this meal. I have not eaten in 2 days. Lucy felt a pang of sadness at that. Well, she said, same time tomorrow then. Kethvorak blinked. You wish to do this again? That is what friends do, Lucy said. They eat together. They talk. They help each other out. We are not friends, Kethvorak said. You do not know what that word means to my people. Then teach me, Lucy said. I am a good student. Kethvorak was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Tomorrow, he said. Same time. Lucy smiled and headed back to work. Behind her, the giant Dravani warrior sat alone at the table and stared at his empty bowl with something new in his yellow eyes. It looked almost like hope. The message reached the Dravani homeworld faster than Kethvorik had expected. Someone on the station had been watching him. Someone had recorded his meetings with Lucy. Someone had sent evidence of his disgrace back to his clan leaders. He found out when the 3 warships appeared in the space near station. Horizon-7. Lucy was working her usual shift in the cargo bay when the alarm started blaring. She looked up at the viewing screens and felt her blood run cold. 3 massive Dravani vessels hung in the darkness like predators waiting to strike. Their hulls were covered in weapon ports, and their engines glowed with barely contained power. All station personnel, please remain calm, the announcement said. A Dravani delegation has requested permission to dock. This is a diplomatic matter. Please do not interfere. Lucy dropped her datapad and ran. She pushed through crowds of frightened aliens who were all trying to get as far from the docking bays as possible. She ran against the flow of traffic until her lungs burned and her legs ached. She had to find Kethvorik before it was too late. She found him in the main plaza near the central gardens. He was standing alone in the middle of the open space, and 3 Dravani warriors stood facing him from 20 feet away. They were all even larger than Kethvorik, with black armor that gleamed under the station lights. Their weapons were drawn, and their yellow eyes burned with contempt. The lead warrior was massive, even by Dravani standards. He had a jagged scar that ran from his forehead to his chin, and his voice echoed across the plaza like thunder. Kethvorik of Clan Mord, he said, you have brought shame upon your blood. You have formed bonds with prey species. You have forgotten what it means to be Dravani. Kethvorik stood tall, but Lucy could see the tension in his 4 shoulders. Commander Threckmord, he said, I have done nothing wrong. I have simply made a friend. Friend. Threckmord spat the word like it was poison. The Dravani do not have friends. We have allies who serve our purposes and enemies who fall before our strength. This human has made you weak. She has corrupted you with her softness. She has shown me kindness, Kethvorik said. Something I had never known before. That is not weakness. That is strength of a different kind. Threckmord laughed, and it was an ugly sound full of cruelty. The clan elders have made their judgment. You will renounce this bond publicly. You will declare that the human means nothing to you. You will return home and submit to reconditioning. Or you will face exile and death. Lucy pushed through the crowd of onlookers who had gathered at a safe distance. She walked into the open space and stood beside Kethvorik. The 3 Dravani warriors turned their attention to her, and she felt the weight of their hatred pressing down on her like a physical force. This is the creature, Threckmord said. This small weak thing is what you have sacrificed your honor for. Look at her. She could not survive a single blow from a Dravani child. Lucy kept her voice steady, even though her heart was pounding. I am not here to fight anyone. I am here because my friend is in trouble. That is what friendship means. Threckmord made a dismissive gesture with 2 of his hands. Take her, he said to the warriors beside him. We will show Kethvorik what happens to those who corrupt Dravani warriors. The 2 warriors moved forward. Lucy did not run. She did not flinch. She stood her ground and looked at Kethvorik. Whatever happens, she said, I do not regret anything. You are my friend. Nothing changes. That Ket-Vork moved so fast that Lucy barely saw it happen. He was suddenly standing between her and the advancing warriors. His own weapon was drawn, and his voice rang out across the plaza with a power she had never heard from him before. Stop, he commanded. By the ancient rights of our people, I invoke the bond of kin-choosing. This human is my bondkin. Her life is equal to my own. Any who threaten her threaten me. The plaza fell silent. Even Threckmord seemed taken aback by these words. He stared at Kethvorik with something that might have been confusion. "The bond of kin-choosing," he said slowly. "That right has not been spoken in 500 years. It belongs to the old ways, the weak ways. It has no power here. It has power because I give it power," Kethvorik said. "Our ancestors understood something that we have forgotten. Strength is not only about destroying. It is also about protecting, about building, about choosing who we stand beside." Threckmord shook his head. "You are mad. The clan will never accept this. You are throwing away everything for a creature who will die in a few short decades while you live on for centuries. Then I will cherish those decades," Kethvorik said. "I would rather have a short time with someone who sees me as more than a weapon than a long life surrounded by those who see me only as a tool for violence." Lucy felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not expected this. She had not expected Kethvorik to give up everything for her. She reached out and touched his arm. "You do not have to do this," she said softly. "I am not worth your entire life." Kethvorik looked down at her, and his yellow eyes were warm. "You taught me what it means to be more than what I was made to be," he said. "You showed me that there is more to existence than fighting and killing. That is worth more than anything my people can offer me." Threckmord drew his weapon fully and pointed it at Kethvorik. "Enough," he said. "The elders gave you a choice. Renounce the bond or face the consequences. You have made your decision. Now face your death. If you kill me, you will prove that I was right," Kethvorik said calmly. "You will show the galaxy that the Dravani are so afraid of change that we murder our own children for making friends. Is that the legacy you want?" Threckmord hesitated. Around the plaza, other species were watching and recording everything. Station security had arrived, but they kept their distance knowing they were outmatched by the Dravani warriors. "The entire galactic network would see whatever happened next, Doc," Lucy spoke up. She did not know where the courage came from, but she found it somewhere deep inside herself. "Commander Threckmord," she said, "I know you think I am weak. I know you think humans are beneath your notice. But I want you to understand something. I am standing here not because I am strong. I am standing here because some things matter more than strength. Some things matter more than survival. Kethvorik showed me that your people have forgotten those things. Maybe it is time for them to remember." Threckmord stared at her. His weapon did not waver, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that Lucy could not quite identify. Then he spoke, and his voice was different than before. Less certain. "You would die for him?" he asked. "You would give up your short human life for a Dravani warrior who you have known for only a few weeks." "Yes," Lucy said simply. Without hesitation. "Why?" Threckmord demanded. "Because that is what friends do," Lucy said. "Because he is worth it. Because the universe needs more beings who are willing to stand up for what is right, even when it costs them everything." The silence stretched on. Kethvorik kept his weapon raised and his body positioned between Lucy and the Dravani warriors. The station seemed to hold its breath. Then Threckmord lowered his weapon. "This is not over," he said. His voice was hard, but some of the hatred had faded from it. "The clan elders will hear of everything that happened here. They will make their final judgment. Then let them judge," Kethvorik said. "I will face whatever comes." Threckmord turned and walked back toward the docking bay. The other two warriors followed him. At the edge of the plaza, Threckmord stopped and looked back over his shoulder. "The old ways," he said quietly. "I had forgotten them. Perhaps I should not have." Then he was gone, and the three Dravani warships departed into the endless dark. Lucy let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. She turned to Kethvorik and found him looking at her with an expression of pure gratitude. "You should not have come," he said. "You could have been killed." Lucy smiled and took his massive hand in both of hers. "What did I tell you?" she said. "Friends look out for each other." That goes both ways. Kethvorik made that rumbling sound that she had learned was his version of laughter. You are impossible, he said. I know, Lucy said. But you are stuck with me now. They stood together in the plaza while the crowd slowly dispersed around them. The crisis had passed, but both of them knew that the real battle was still to come. 3 weeks passed and Lucy kept her promise. Every day during her lunch break, she met Kethvorik at the noodle shop on level 3. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just ate in comfortable silence. The other customers learned to ignore. The giant Dravani warrior sitting in the corner and life on the station continued around them. Lucy learned many things about Kethvorik during those meals. She learned that he was considered young by Dravani standards at only 42 years old. She learned that the scars on his face were marks of honor earned in combat trials when he was barely an adult. She learned that his people lived on a harsh world, where weakness meant death and strength was the only currency that mattered. She also learned that he was desperately unhappy that my clan sent me here because I spoke against the elders. Kethvorik told her one day. He was eating a bowl of something purple that the cook had created just for him. They wanted to expand our territory by taking the mining colonies of a weaker species. I said it was wrong. I said we had enough resources already. They called me soft. What happened to the colonies? Lucy asked. Kethvorik looked down at his food. They were taken. The people who lived there were killed or enslaved. And I was sent here so that I would not speak against such actions again. Lucy did not know what to say to that. She reached across the table and put her hand on one of his massive forearms. His scales were warm and rough under her palm. Kethvorik stared at her hand like he had never seen anything so strange in his life. What are you doing? He asked. It is called offering comfort, Lucy said. Humans do it when someone they care about is hurting. I know it does not fix anything, but sometimes it helps to know you are not alone. Kethvorik did not pull away. He sat very still and something changed in his yellow eyes. No one has touched me without intent to harm since I was a child, he said quietly. My mother would hold me when I was scared. Then she died in a border conflict, and my father told me that I must never be scared again. That sounds like a lonely way to grow up, Lucy said. It is the Dravani way, Kethvorik said. But yes, it is lonely. After that day, something shifted between them. Kethvorik began to open up more. He asked Lucy questions about human culture, and she answered them as best she could. He was fascinated by the concept of family bonds that were not based on strength or usefulness. He was confused by the idea of doing things just for fun. One evening, Lucy brought a deck of playing cards to their meal. She taught Kethvorik how to play a simple game and watched his face as he tried to understand the rules. His 4 hands kept getting tangled up with each other as he tried to hold the cards properly. This game has no purpose, he said after losing for the 3rd time. There is no prize for winning, no punishment for losing. Why do humans play it? Because it is fun, Lucy said. Because it passes the time. Because it gives people a reason to sit together and talk. Kethvorik considered this. He dealt the cards again with careful movements. My people do not have games like this. We have combat training. We have strategy exercises. Everything must serve a purpose. Maybe that is the problem, Lucy said. Sometimes the purpose is just to enjoy being alive. They played cards until the restaurant closed. When they left, Kethvorik walked Lucy back to her quarters, even though she told him it was not necessary. He said that it was the least he could do for his teacher of human ways. Lucy laughed and said that made her sound much more important than she was. The next week brought trouble. Lucy was walking through the commercial district when 3 aliens blocked her path. They were Velish traders with gray skin and too many teeth. She recognized them from the cargo bay, where they often tried to smuggle illegal goods past inspection. You are the human who eats with the Dravani beast. the lead trader said. His voice was cold and angry. You bring shame to this station. No civilized being should associate with those monsters. Lucy kept her voice calm. HFY is not a monster. He is a person. And who I eat lunch with is none of your business. The trader stepped closer. We lost family to the Dravani raids. Our cousins were killed when they attacked the Velish outposts. And you sit with one of them like old friends. It makes us sick. Lucy stood her ground. I'm sorry for your loss, truly. But HFY was not part of those raids. He actually spoke against them and was punished for it. You are blaming him for things he did not do. The traders moved closer, and Lucy felt her heart beating faster. She looked around for station security, but the corridor was empty. One of the traders reached for her arm. Then a shadow fell over all of them. HFY stood behind the traders. He had appeared so silently that none of them had heard him approach. His yellow eyes burned with cold fury, and his 4 hands were curled into fists the size of human heads. The traders turned, and their gray faces went pale. They stumbled backward and nearly tripped over each other trying to get away. Within seconds, they had disappeared down the corridor, and Lucy was alone with HFY. Are you hurt? He asked. His voice was tight with something that might have been fear. I am fine, Lucy said. They were just talking. It was not going to get physical. HFY made a low growling sound. You do not know that. You should not put yourself at risk by associating with me. I have told you this before. There is danger in our friendship. Lucy looked up at him and smiled. And I told you before that I'm not afraid. Friends look out for each other. That goes both ways, you know. HFY stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised her completely. He laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that seemed to shake the air around them. You are the strangest being I have ever met, he said. Thank you, Lucy said. I think. They walked together to the noodle shop and took their usual table. The cook brought their food without being asked, and HFY ate in thoughtful silence for a while. Then he put down his utensils and looked at Lucy with an intensity that made her pause. I want to understand, he said. What does friendship mean to your people? Not just the small things. The true meaning of it. Lucy thought carefully before answering. Friendship means choosing someone, she said. It means saying that out of all the beings in the universe, this one matters to me. Not because they are useful, not because they are powerful, just because of who they are. It means being there when things are hard. It means celebrating when things are good. It means trusting someone with the parts of yourself that you keep hidden from everyone else. HFY listened with complete attention. When she finished, he nodded slowly. Among my people, we have a concept that is similar, he said, but it is ancient. It comes from before we became warriors. It is called Bankin, a chosen family that stands above blood ties. The old stories say that Bankin would die for each other without hesitation. That sounds about right, Lucy said. HFY looked at her with something new in his eyes, something that looked almost like wonder. I have never had Bankin, he said. I have had allies. I have had fellow warriors, but never someone who chose me simply because of who I am. Lucy smiled and raised her cup of tea in a small toast. Well, she said, maybe it is time for that to change. HFY raised his own cup, and their glasses touched with a soft clink. For the first time since she had known him, Lucy saw him smile. It changed his whole face and made the fearsome scars look almost gentle. To new beginnings, Lucy said. To friendship, HFY replied. Outside the restaurant window, the stars turned slowly in the endless dark. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, 2 very different beings sat together and shared something that neither of them had expected to find. A connection, a bond, a beginning.